Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Trekway. It's been a hot minute. I'm Trev. That's Gray. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone. I feel I've got to say that.
Yep.
Happy Holidays. Not
Happy
everyone
holidays.
celebrates Christmas the same, so happy holidays. Because even if you don't like Christmas, you still get time off work, hopefully. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hope you all got like some good Trek presents. There are a lot
I
of Trek
usually
stuff.
do. That's
They used to do the ornaments every year. I don't know if they're still doing that. They did
Trek
it for years over here.
Trek themed presents. I meet up with a couple of close friends of mine. They listen to this podcast show, Joyce and Roger, and they both love Star Trek. My friend Roger's a big Deep Space Nine guy. My friend Joyce is a big Voyager gal. So every year we'll meet up several times, but at Christmas we'll meet up for some drinks and swap some presents. And they're small presents. They're not like huge presents, Craig. They're like just thoughtful presents rather than the monetary value. And not every Christmas, but some Christmas it's Star Trek themed. I've had a little miniature key ring of Spock given to me. I've had a Star Trek mug given to me. I've got the NCC 1701 reg plate that's up on my wall. So I've had some nice. So if anyone's had some nice Christmas Star Trek gifts, tell me below in the comments. Gray, have you had nice Star Trek Christmas gifts?
Occasionally. I mean, one time I had a Star Trek ornament. Another time, which I thought was pretty cool. This is years ago. It was a keychain, a little black thing attached to a keychain, and on the black thing had 8 buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And each button you hit was something from Star Trek, some kind of clip from Star Trek, phaser fire, or beam me up, Scotty, or something like that. I thought that was cool, and I used to put that on my keys, and I wore it out to death till it finally broke.
Sounds like Gray. So now, when you say to clear this up, I only found out this recently. When you say ornament, are you meaning an ornament on your mantelpiece, or what you would call an ornament that goes on a Christmas tree?
And it's an ornament that was technically meant for a Christmas tree, but people will collect these ornaments. And if you have some of the originals that first came out years ago, they're worth some money.
Right, that makes sense. Because we call them baubles here for the things that go on trees. So how do you tell the difference? If you say I'm getting an ornament, how will your fellow Americans know if you're talking about on the tree or on your mantelpiece or your units or your whatever?
I mean, generally speaking, an
Context.
ornament is more meant for tree than anything else. That doesn't mean an ornament can't be something else other than put on a Christmas tree. But generally speaking, when you hear ornaments, it tends to be...
You don't put them on your mantelpiece?
No, the only thing that I mean, I don't. Being Jewish, we do Hanukkah, but generally speaking, people do put wreaths on their door, right?
Yeah.
Or they might put a wreath in their house, and so I've seen people hang ornaments on the wreath as opposed to the tree, or both. Whatever.
Does it need to be Christmas themed? I mean, like a normal little old-fashioned ornament that's non-Christmassy, not at Christmas time, on your mantelpiece, versus something that goes on your tree. I'm like, how do you tell the difference of those? Context.
I mean, if I had all the Trek ornaments, I probably, with the box, because it's worth more with the box, I probably would have the boxes with the ornaments inside all displayed because they're pretty cool. I mean, they back then they did the original Enterprise, they did the Galileo 7, they did a few other things, and the originals of those are worth, I don't know what now, probably quite a lot, because it's been a lot of years.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think he's fully understand what I was asking. I don't think he's fully answered my question either. I think I've confused them. People in the UK will know what I'm talking about. We put things in the mantle.
About the fireplace?
Fireplace, mantelpiece. People put little nice ornaments, nice little statues and things. Yeah. But how do you tell the difference? You can't. If you say to my friend, I'm buying an ornament, but are you putting it on the tree or are you putting it somewhere else? I think it's the time of year. It's context, mate. I think it's context.
Yeah. Ornaments tree on the mantle are more like, I don't know what you call them, but they tend to be... No, actually, they tend to be like scenes. Like, it could be like little houses or, things like that are lit up and things, and candles, right?
True.
Candles.
Yeah. Okay.
That stuff goes on the mantle, but the actual ornament, balls, other crap that hang on the tree, that's all tree stuff.
Never do that again, Gray.
This?
Sorry, we are massively on a major tangent. We haven't even told you the theme of today's show. It just sounds like us. It sounds like a trick where
Star Trek.
nothing's. I mean, it's going to be a shorter episode than usual anyway, so we may as well talk crap for a
We
little bit of
think.
it.
Never know.
Yeah, well, no, true. There is right. So there's 6 starships on this list. We've done something similar before, which I'm going to link below, and it'll be at the end of the video. It'll be what YouTube selects as the next best video. I'm going to intervene and put our Gray and I's favourite starship list that we had from way back near the start of the Trekway. So it's a similar kind of idea, but today we thought there was an article, and I'm going to give full credit to the article here. I don't want to be accused of plagiarism when we're actually borrowing the idea from this website. It's an article from Gamerant.com. And I'll link that below as well. The 6 most powerful Federation starships ranked in order, right? And it's a good idea. I think Gray put that on a couple of ranked lists a while ago, and we kind of dip in and out and take them. I tend to not like doing them too often because I don't want to feel like I'm just going, and a number 5, and a number 4. But this is a good one to cover. And actually, probably half the starships are in our favourite list, actually. So we can correlate them together, Gray, and we'll see what's what. So the idea being, start from 6, count down to the most powerful. My baby is only about halfway down the list. I am pissed off about that. It should be way closer to the top. But I'm actually going to read a little blurb from each starship, right? And then we'll just briefly talk about it. If we remember it in any particular episodes, Gray, what we think about it, what we like, what we dislike, that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, we'll just start at number 6. Sound like the chart show for Christmas time, don't we? In number 6 place, we have the Akira class.
12 Days of Trek.
Yeah, may as well be. Yeah, I've heard versions of that. They're not good. The Akira class. Now, I'll read a little blurb about that and then we'll discuss it. So, the Akira class of Federation starships is a mighty one. And unlike most starships under Federation control, it was made with the thought of war in mind. During production, the hostilities with the Cardassian Union prompted the creation of a speedy battleship. However, during the creation of the Akira class, the Federation became more aware of potential Borg invasion and sped things up. Brought into service in 2368, the Akira class has been seen in Deep Space Nine and Star Trek First Contact. Star Trek 8, yeah. Examples of this ship type include the USS Akira, of course, the USS Geronimo. I'm pretty sure that's what Matt Smith's Doctor Who says. And even the USS James T. Kirk. What? There's a starship named... Oh, wow. Okay, we're going to circle back to that one, Gray. Major differences from other Federation ships include a high number of torpedo bays and a large shuttle bay, which enabled the Akira-class ships to be fighter carriers. Gray, USS James T. Kirk. Do you know about this? Discuss.
Yeah, I don't think we've really ever seen it, but I've heard the name thrown around. Wow. We didn't see enough of the Akira in Star Trek at all, to be honest. I mean, yes, we did see some in Deep Space Nine, which was cool, and we saw some in First Contact, and then you get like little things here and there, like you might spot an Akira in Star Trek Picard when they were showing the scene of all the ships, flying in or being around. I always loved the Akira. The only reason I even knew about the Akira long ago was because I played the Star Trek Armada game, which came out in the early...
So good, isn't it, Gray?
Early 90s? I guess early 90s?
I love that game.
Oh, no, early 2000s. Early 2000s. And the Akira class was in there, and as well as a bunch of other class ships that you could play in the game. And I really like the Akira class a lot. I mean, as far as a true battleship, that would be that you would need in some kind of armada. The Akira just looks cool, and it's loaded for bear, so it's coming at you with everything. In fact, in my mind, if you're gonna field a battle, a bunch of ships, I would have generally a lot of Akiras followed by a lot of Defiant class, because between the Akira and the Defiant, you're gonna be mopping up a lot. which is great. And then you just have the bigger ships in the back throwing with their weight around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way I would do it.
It's
That's the way I
different
did it a
attack
lot.
wings, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have different squadrons of different types of ships, just like you do in the Army and the Navy. It's the same in
Sure.
Starfleet.
That's why I used to have fun on the on Armada, because Armada I would make my complement of ships that way, and then also what you never really saw much at all, and I don't even know if it's in this list, to be honest, was the Steam Runner class.
It's
the
not
Armada
on the list,
game,
no, but it's a similar kind of idea as Akira. Yeah.
In the Armada game, they used the Steam Runner for long range weapons, so you basically could set out a powerful weapon on a long path. So you would have them generally sitting in the back, firing off long range weapons.
Yeah.
Your other ships and stuff. And I always wondered if we would ever see one of those in Trek on TV or movies, and we never really did. We're lucky we saw the Akira, but the Akira is a sharp ship, man. I love that ship. I think it's fantastic. I really like it.
It looks a little bit like a Reliant class. Is it Reliant class? No.
A little bit.
Yeah. Is it Reliant class, or that's the name of the ship? It's
No,
the one
Akira's
from Star Trek 2. Star Trek 2, the Wrath of the Khan. It's got the. I don't know if you can. Certain classes of ship, it's either this one or the Steam Runner. You can swap modules in and out. It makes it very customizable starship depending on what you actually want to do with it. It's got a kind of, and this link will be in the show notes, so you can go and see these for yourself. It's got a Reliant type bar along the top, and in the middle there's the photon launchers in there, so you can take things in and out, pack it with more teeth if you want it to. Plus, it's more compact and flat. So one of the important things is a flat, thin contact and small is a lot harder to hit than, say, a Galaxy class or something.
Sure.
And it looks pretty impressive. It's a lot more smaller and nimble. I'll be honest, Gray, I didn't know about this one as much during my Trek following career. I do remember seeing it in First Contact, because I think it was that ship at the end, and I may be wrong here, at the end of the fight with the cube, that literally, as Enterprise comes in and saves the day, you see ships getting destroyed left, right, and centre, and then you see this ship fly away, and I think it's an Akira. If it's not an Akira, it's a Steam Runner, because it's more solid and packs a punch. Along with the Enterprise and the other ships that were there, it just absolutely demolished that cube. I'm not as a fan of it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm going down this list. I don't agree with most of what's in this list, and I'll say why as we go through. Does the Akira deserve to be in that list? Maybe just in 6th place. Maybe. I don't begrudge that. We didn't see it enough. You're right, Greg. We did not see it enough. I don't remember how many episodes of Deep Space Nine it was in, but it was definitely prominent in that because it was made with the Dominion War in mind. And obviously a Borg threat wasn't quite going away. They sped up the design of it, and that, along with Defiant and Steam Runner, were some of the more advanced ships for the fleet. But yeah, so Akira class, very decent ship. I would like a little model of it. I don't have one, unfortunately. So yeah.
Well, also too, remember the list is most powerful, not most liked per se. So in other words, like when we did our list before, we were going on what we liked the best.
True.
This is strictly only power.
True, but without spoiling what's in number one place, mate, that's Kelvin Universe, which we can't stand at all. But that's why I kind of partly disagree. But yeah, powerful. If in terms of power levels, it might be accurate. But yeah, so Akira class, that's number 6 in the list there. And maybe I would agree with that. To be fair, it is a nice little starship. Number 5, this is disgraceful, Gray. Who do I write to? Who do we get an appeal against? Absolutely disgusting. And only 5th place is the Defiant class. And I'll read a little blurb, and then I will rip someone a new one for blasphemy against my baby. The Defiant class and the USS Defiant had intriguing build history. Initially, these ships began construction during the Borg threat, but when this was lessened, they were put away until they were put away. Makes it sound like a car. Until the Dominion threat became a fresh problem for Starfleet. Despite initial design flaws, DS9's Miles O'Brien was able to fix the USS Defiant enough to make it ready on a high level. This caused the Federation to start building more ships to follow the USS Defiant, thanks to Miles O'Brien, and thus the Defiant class was born and properly put into service then. These ships are small, highly powerful, and heavily armed. They remain warships, the first ones ever created by Starfleet, and were introduced in the year 2371. Great, that's disgusting. That's what? 5th place? That's one of the few things I disagree about with here. And I can't spoil it by going down the rest of the list yet. Where would you have put that in the list, looking down the list?
I probably would have tossed it up to
I would have been 4 or
3.
3 or something for me, yeah.
Yeah, I would have put in 3. Yeah. And we won't say the others until we get there. But yeah, I definitely would have moved it up. I don't understand number 5 per se.
We have
you know what, I think people are thinking, or maybe when they made the list, they were thinking like, well, bigger is more powerful, and I guess
partially
from a technical
true. It's
standpoint, but
true,
it does. But they have to keep in mind that if you're going on taking the ship as a whole, and in other words, if you were to take all the weapons and you upgraded them and threw them on a sovereign class, okay, now you're talking pretty powerful.
Imagine the sovereign class with the pulse phase.
All the stuff and all the bells and whistles. It would be a different ship. So, if you're looking at it as just the ship as a whole, then you would have to move the Defiant up. I mean, I don't see how you could leave it in 5. I mean, technically, you could even if you really wanted to argue the case, purely on a ship-to-ship basis, okay, you might even have to move it up to number 2, or maybe even number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say that a sovereign couldn't take a Defiant out. It would, it probably would have some trouble, but the point is that it could, but that's not the point. The point is what's the most powerful ship as a whole.
Yeah.
So in my mind, as a whole, it has to be
you're standing it on its own right. You're not saying, it's up against a Galaxy class or a Sovereign class or a Romulan Warbird. You're actually saying, standing alone by itself, how powerful is it? I think this is where this list gets a bit wrong. Yeah. The Defiant class for me, I talked about it before. It's in Grey Eye's top 5. It's my number 1 ship. It was 2 or 3 for you, mate. 3 maybe. I think it was 3 for you. Something like that. Yeah. So it's easily in their top 5 because it's unique. It's unique because it was designed to be a warship, which Starfleet don't do, but they had to. They had no choice. Miles O'Brien to the rescue saves the Defiant class because the thing was, I don't know which is smaller, that or Akira. It's interesting, and they're shaped different. So in terms of like cubic volume, I don't know. They're probably similar.
No, the Defiant is definitely smaller than the Akira.
It's small, but the Akira is flatter. So I'm turning about like cubic volume. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I agree with you. In terms of visually, Kira is a bit bigger. The Defiant class has so much power in it. No wonder it was ripping itself apart. Miles O'Brien comes in, saves the day, and then it's put into production properly because you see more of them later on in DS9 and in other shows as well. For me, without rehashing what I said when we done our favourite Starships, because I don't want to repeat myself. This ship here would struggle up against, say, like a Sovereign or whatnot, but you've got to base it on what it actually is. Now, its downsides are it's a lot smaller, so it can't take the same kind of pounding. However, what that means, there was an episode, I don't recall, I'm bad with titles of episodes, in DS9 where the Defiant, or was it the Valorant? The Defiant goes up against a Romulan Warbird and goes into that. I mean, it's a stupid design for a Warbird when you've got that empty space in the middle, but it goes in the middle and then just like one of those fidget spinners just spins and then goes pew, 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 and absolutely rips it a new one, which really, really surprised me. But there you go. The Warbird, if they're up against each other, Warbird Defiant, like a decent distance apart, and they fired until one was destroyed. Of course, the Defiant's going to go first. It's a lot smaller, a lot less mass, but it uses its advantages, which is it's probably one of, if not the most nimblest fastest ships in this whole list that we do. It's either that or the Akira, I think. So I think it should be a lot higher.
I think the Defiant was a lot closer to a fighter. Fighters would be even smaller than the Defiant.
Yeah, that's front line, mate. That's front line.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But the fighters wouldn't be that much smaller than the Defiant. So Defiant is kind of like a half.
Yeah. Your fighters and then probably those class of ships behind them. Something like that, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if you had a line of, let's say, fighters, and then right behind that line you had a line of Defiants, that's pretty. And then behind that, a line of Akiras. Holy crap!
Yeah.
You'd be in some trouble. I mean, that would be like that, And then a big old ship firing off the long range stuff in the back of that. It would be like that would be awfully formidable. The other good thing about the Defiant was that it was because it was so small, it was extremely nimble. So
it's the most nimble
going
on the
up
list.
against right. So if it's going up against a warbird, it's going to take some time for a warbird to put it out of commission, and in that time, it's going to put some damage on it. It may not blow it up or something, but it's going to put some good damage on it before it goes down.
Another good example of that is that we talked about up against the warbird. I don't know if you remember the episode in DS9. I think it was called Valorant, where the kids that were on the Defiant class ship, the cadets, and Nog and Jake went on there, and they were like incognito because their commander and their captain, their crew, their senior crew were killed, and they took on the fight. They went up against that big massive like Dreadnought Cardassian type ship that they were building, or Dominion. I think it was a Dominion ship, and the thing was huge. And they went in and they did kick its arse quite a lot, but in the end, because it was an inexperienced crew, of course the ship is only as good as its crew. It was starting to get smashed up, and I think it eventually gets destroyed. But it held its own against a purpose-built, massive warship, much bigger than that. Respect, and it's obviously got it's got shielding. It doesn't have secondary shielding, I don't think, unlike say the Sovereign class, but it has ablative armor, which helps. I don't know if the Sovereign does. I assume it does, but I don't recall for sure. It's got photon torpedoes, quantum torpedoes. The front of the ship was always rumoured to be a separate missile silo. The little nose bit, the giraffe neck, that was always rumoured in the designs by Doug Drexler, I think it was, to send that off like a separate cache of missile or torpedoes to blow something up massively. Never happened. So this thing is packing so much that it should be full of
the pulse cannons too, pulse phaser cannons.
Pulse phaser cannon, pulse. That was, I love those things. They should be in more Starships.
It's like phaser machine guns.
Oh, see that noise when you heard it, and then when you see it in 4K, when you see those upscaled sketches, and Gray's bought that software, so he's playing about with upscaling as well, having a great time. You just see and hear this thing in 4K, and I'm like, wow. At Paramount, I'll pay you whatever you want. Just do it. I'll pay you. Just name your price. I don't care. I'll take my pension money and give you it. It's fine.
That's a side discussion we'll have to have maybe on another special. But it's pretty poor that you can't get Deep Space Nine or Voyager in at least HD, let alone 4K.
How good are the sketches though, man? It's just
I mean, people forget. If you go on the internet right now and look at YouTube and look up the original episodes, whatever, or clips or anything, it's all 480p. Let's think about that for a minute. 480p.
It's DVD quality.
Back then we were like, well, this is great. But now when you're looking at like 1080p being HD, it's a big difference already to 1080p. Now when you start going to 4K, it's another leap.
1080p is the bare minimum. Bare minimum these days.
Yeah, and 1080p is more than double the clarity of the original episode. So right there.
Yeah.
Well, and what Trev was talking about, if y'all are listening to us or watching us, go on YouTube and just put in Deep Space Nine, Voyager, or whatever, upscale, and the word Topaz maybe, because that's the software, and you'll see a couple of people out there that know what they're doing, and wow, does some of the clips from Voyager and Deep Space Nine look good? They look really good.
Yeah.
I was like totally floored. I was going like, whoa. I mean, HD and some 4K clips.
One of the main ones, Gray, is the I can't remember the actual name of the fight. That famous fight in DS9 where you see the Defiant at the front of a big squadron of ships, and I think they were taking on that's the push for Cardassia, where they're taking out the missile turrets or the torpedo turrets, and they had to take down the shielding. Remember, the Defiant was key in that. I don't remember the name of it, but it'll come to me later on. that was stunning. That in 4K is just wow. But anyway, yeah, that is another discussion we can leave for another time. We'll move on in the list, of course. Number 4 on the list, which I would maybe agree with its position here. That is the Galaxy class. Oh, Fat Boy herself, as Gray named her. As if the Galaxy class needed any more praise. The USS Enterprise D, flown by Captain Picard and his amazing crew throughout Star Trek The Next Generation, was a member of this class. The many achievements of Picard and his crew boil down to their tenacity, but the strength of the Galaxy-class Federation starships is not to be ignored. A well-used ship by the Federation during the heavy losses of the Dominion War, the Galaxy-class is a heavy capital ship that came into being in the mid-2360s. Unlike some of the Federation's other most impressive and powerful ships, the Galaxy-class managed to be an all-in-one with the capacity to wage war, but a crew tasked with preventing it. Discovery and war, speed and majesty, the Galaxy class had it all. Galaxy class, Gray, discuss thoughts.
I think it, for what they rated it, I would say 4 or 3, depending on how we do the other ones. But yeah, undoubtedly the Galaxy class was a huge ship. I mean, the thing was big.
The biggest of all of these
that they ever made.
Yeah.
And when you first saw it on the screen, back when TNG first premiered, like, especially for me, because after I'd seen TOS and I see this, I'm going like, wow.
Did you have a scale of size though, Greg? Because you saw it was huge, but then when did you ever see it up against a Constitution class or something smaller for scale?
Yeah, there's a video out there. This one guy does a lot of this stuff where he compares ship sizes to all kinds of things.
I know who you're talking
and you can
about.
definitely see the size.
Oh yeah, yeah.
More than twice the size of a Constitution class. So.
Oh yeah.
That already tells you right there. But yeah, it's a pretty massive ship. But it had I remember when we first started seeing it in TNG, the neat thing about it was the phaser array as opposed to phasers coming out of more like a cannon type thing that moved around.
Yep.
Like in the other, this was a whole array. So the ring that you see in the hull was basically almost like a phaser on a rail. It's traveling along a rail, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
And when I first saw that, I was going like, wow, that's pretty cool, because you're sitting there seeing fire phasers off in all different directions, whether it be from the top of the saucer or the bottom of the saucer. It was still happening. That was pretty cool. So that was amazing when you first saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, a couple of those around are definitely, if nothing else, you're going to block a lot of shots because that thing is broad.
So
I mean, it's wide.
For me, this thing, I mean, I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for the Dominion War because it was great content, and it meant that the Enterprise D had a second life in Picard, where the saucer section was restored by Geordi, and the engine and the secondary hull come from, I can't now name the other starship, but it was the part of a starship during the war that actually survived, so he put the two together. This ship went on for a long, long time, Gray, right? Decades. Sure. And used by Starfleet for a long time, because after TNG, you saw it for a while in the Dominion War as well. You would see them all the time. They were the big, beefy ships at the back, and nothing would take them out. So that's why the Jem'Hadar would go on kamikaze runs to literally take it out, like go right for the nacelle and blow the thing up in one go. Because these little ships couldn't take this out. You'd have to concentrate so much firepower in this thing to try and take it out, because it's so big. It's literally huge. They stopped making starships that big after that, for the most part, because they knew it wasn't practical. I mean, this thing had a crew of like hundreds. Was it not like 1,000 plus? It was over 1,000.
Yeah. Well, also families. It was meant to carry families, right?
Yeah,
which is the first ship that ever did that.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, when they went with the newer ships that we're going to talk about, they took out the family thing.
Wasn't a good idea.
The Galaxy was carrying the families around.
Wasn't a good idea.
I mean, if you're purely going on Discovery, yes, it's fine. Bring your family along because you're out for a long time. Okay, cool. But if you're going to be going in any kind of real battle, you're not going to want the family along. In case you lose the ship, you lose your whole family. That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I mean, I would think a Galaxy class could carry, even though we never really saw it, could carry a lot of fighters, and it could probably carry, like maybe a dozen Defiant class.
Well,
all inside it.
that's
It's
a good point.
huge.
Because it was never designed for that, it never had that, to my understanding. Maybe some ships were retrofitted during the Dominion War to have that, but because it was designed to be an all-in-one ship, it wouldn't have had that, which makes sense. You weren't designing it. But when Gray, touching a point you mentioned before, when Gray's talking about going from TOS to TNG, and you see the difference between the two, and it is completely different in so many ways. It became the standard blueprint for that whole era. When you talk about TNG era, you think of that kind of ship now, and other ships that came from it that looked kind of similar-ish. The phaser arrays were genius. That was the next evolution. Have an arc, like a railgun on an arc going all the way around, and you would see that they could literally hit any point in space because they had this one ring at the bottom, one ring at the top. They probably had smaller strips on the secondary hull as well. The thing is, because this was a little bit further back, it didn't have secondary shielding that I'm aware. It didn't have ablative armour, that stuff. It was just sheer mass, but the shields were powerful. I remember that about it, mate. Yeah. Remember the difference in shields between TOS era and TNG era, and I don't know if that was by design or on purpose, but TOS, the shields literally almost hugged the ship, which is not great. It's not smart, because when you pummel the shields, you're that close to the hull, it's going to cause damage. So later on, they decided in TNG, we'll make it a shield bubble, which takes more power, but it means no vibration, shock is going to go through and absolutely smash the ship inside. So it had strong shields. I think that was why it was so defensive, Gray. It was so strong, because it took a lot. I mean, the Duras sisters literally had to use Geordi to bypass the shields because it was that short. And even then, it took several direct torpedoes to even kick off the chain reaction that blew up. So one solid, tough cookie, old fat boy yourself. Always loved that ship.
One of the things I thought was cool too is I read that, I believe it's canon, but I had read that when they created the shield bubble, there was also secondary shields that did hug the ship. So you basically had your bubble that was the strongest shield. If you lost that, you still had a shield that would hug the ship, but it wouldn't be nearly as powerful.
Good point.
But it would get you a few more minutes of survival, maybe, or whatever.
That's a very good point, Gray. I think, don't quote me, I don't think it's a Galaxy class. I think it's another class of ship that we're about to touch on next that has that very thing. Now that you've said that, when we get to it in a moment, I'll explain what I mean by that one there. So, yeah, old fat boy there, love the ship. Thing is, right, one other thing I want to say about it is, and it makes sense, in TNG in the movies it was never that nimble. Because of the sheer size of the thing, it doesn't make sense. These ships are not designed, physics are a thing. Even in Star Trek, it's not supposed to be that nimble. So that's why I don't have many nitpicks about Star Trek Picard Season 3. One of them I had, that it's a very small nitpick, and I threw it out immediately when I saw the scenes that I saw were bloody brilliant. It's when not only Data took charge of the ship, but also Beverly after as well, and it's Data's taking it through the Borg ship, and it's go weaving and ducking like a Defiant, and I'm like, nah, I'm sorry, nah. Gray agrees with this one as well. We talked about this. It's too far fetched. However,
a little too,
I think they could have, one line again, Geordi could have said, well, yeah, I've been working on it, and it's an old ship, but I've put some modern touches to it in terms of thrusters, manoeuvrability and whatnot, and then we would have maybe slightly bought it again. It's what Gray and I always say, the one line of dialogue will save you so much pain later on. You know,
and I think if they had not exaggerated those scenes that much, we could have let it go. In other words, if you took the scene, right, and you slowed it down like 50%, let's say, okay, now I can kind of accept it. It's doing it, but it's kind of doing it like that. As opposed to like zipping around like it's a Defiant class or something.
But this is,
I mean, it's a minor nitpick, but still,
it was that bloody great that's why I let it pass immediately, because it was brilliant to look at. I forgot about my OCD for a moment. I think the positive thing is that the only person that could have pulled that off was Data, because he's an android and he's got that finesse that maybe he can literally maneuver it and push buttons quick enough for it to respond to the right input. So I'm nitpicking here, I'm touching at cloth. I'm trying to spare them their blushes.
Man, but there's another thing too, when you had mentioned physics, if you want to think about it a little bit too, even though the ships obviously had artificial gravity, but that doesn't matter. The point is that if a ship that size was able to move that nimble, you would be tossing the people around on the inside of the ship all over the place, regardless of whether they're strapped down or not. That's gonna be a lot of like, whoa. I mean, try to take a big ship and move it that fast. You're gonna have problems.
Yeah, and the TNG crew or the actors are seasoned pros at going like this for acting,
like, hey,
but even they would struggle. It's a good point, Gray. It's these. The inertial dampeners must have been top notch, like literally not Walmart quality. Whatever. What's the opposite of Walmart quality in terms of really good American store?
Tiffany class or something.
Tiffany. I've heard of Tiffany class inertial dampeners. You've heard it here first, right? But yeah, physics.
I can imagine they start using these now in the nomenclature. Well, this ship's equipped with Tiffany class. Like, really? Wow. And how do you know that? Well, here's their logo right here on the ship.
Other stores are available. We're not Tiffany's or Walmart fanboys or fangirls. So we'll move on. I do love this ship. Just do not let Deanna Troi fly it. And that's not a female thing. That's a Deanna Troi thing. Do not let her fly it. Number 3 on the list. Could have been slightly higher again. I think this could be number 2, and when we get to number 2, you understand why. Because I'll save myself for number 2. Yeah. Number 3 is the Sovereign class.
Great ship.
Well, yeah, it's the sexiest ship in the list by a country mile, in my opinion. The Sovereign class was a follow-up to the Galaxy class in many ways. This includes the fact that Picard's follow-up ship, the USS Enterprise E, was a member of the Sovereign class. Judging solely from the abilities of the Enterprise E to take down the Borg cube it destroyed in Star Trek First Contact, it's safe to say the Sovereign class was a worthy update to the Galaxy class. Smaller in design and released in the early 2370s, the Sovereign class was a major upgrade from previous classes in terms of warfare, including photon and quantum torpedoes, as well as a large volume of phaser banks. Should the Sovereign class be number 3, Gray? What do you think? Do you like it?
I could see it being number 2.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, it's an awfully powerful ship, especially for a size of the ship. It was smaller than the Galaxy class, but not by much.
Yeah. True.
And stuff. The Galaxy class may have been a wider ship, and the Sovereign was more sleek.
It's longer.
I think the reason. If you go back and look at one of our old podcast things that we did when Trevor and I took our favorite ships, that was my favorite. Sovereign was a great ship. I mean, because it was
that not number 2 for you, Grace? Sorry, no, it was number 2.
No, I think it was
your favorite.
1 or 2. A was a favorite, yeah. But the E took on some of the looks of the A 1701A and the Galaxy class and kind of meshed them together. Now you got them. And it did look really good because you had the size, the power, but the sleekness and the placement of the nacelles and all that stuff, which is more similar to the 1701A. I think they were smart when they made that ship in the movies and stuff, because they said we need something that's going to be, looking like the 1701A did, but something that's going to be more modern. And I think they really outdid themselves when they came up with the Sovereign class. Nice ship. There's also a scene. You remember one of the better scenes of a starship, flying in. I believe it was in First Contact when the Defiant was being battered or whatever by the Borg, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there comes this massive Sovereign E, just goes right in front of the Defiant to take the brunt of the shooting. And I'm just like, whoa! And you just had to step back for a second when you saw it.
It saved my baby from getting ruined again.
Right. And Worf was on the Defiant, I believe.
Yeah, we got a starship coming in. It's the Enterprise, and he stands up all yes, and then on the bridge of the Enterprise when he sees Riker, Riker's like, you take phasers, and he's like, you do remember how to fire phasers? And Worf gave him the look that would kill 1,000 soldiers.
Just before the Enterprise showed up, it was kind of like the usual.
It was almost ruined.
This is a good day to die.
But hey, there's a throwback to my baby, the Defiant. It was holding her own for a long time, ducking and weaving, and it takes a lot for the Borg to hit that with whatever weapon a Borg has. No one knows. But yeah, the Sovereign class was In my list, it was number 3 because I had Define, Enterprise A, and then Enterprise E. And on Gray's list, it was number 2, I think. So we think very similar in terms of what we like, what we don't like. This ship is, my old friend Jim from back in the day would say, it's sex on the cells. Not sex and legs, sex on the cells. Because it was a gorgeous looking ship. Now, the thing we were talking about before about secondary shielding, that's what I was meaning before. When Gray mentioned that, it made a lot of sense. That class of ship, I know, does have secondary shielding. And it's probably what Gray just discussed. It has the traditional shield bubble, its main shielding, and if that fails, it comes back to... In fact, you see it a lot in the one against Shinzon Nemesis. You see it getting battered a lot. Like the shields, they were shooting at the hull a lot, and it was taking damage, it looked like, to the hull, and you see the ripple effect of the shields. So I don't know, maybe that's the second layer. I don't know. I don't pretend to be an expert.
Could be.
It was fast. One of the fastest, in fact, it was the fastest ship at the time when it came out. Because of its sleek outfit, very, very good. It had the curved angular nacelles that all ships now have because Voyager was one of the first ones to have the nacelles that went up and down. That was again from TNG, that episode where they literally blew themselves up, the brother and sister, to prove a point that going high warp ruins subspace. I really loved that episode, very powerful. So now you see angular. I think the designers didn't want to have extra CGI budget of nacelles doing this all the time, so they just put them at an angle all the time, more sleek. And it was, in terms of its warp profile, a lot more sleeker. I believe it did have ablative armor. That was the standard of ships like that going forwards. So many phaser banks. I mean, wow, when it's trying to hit the Shinzon ship, I can't remember the name of it. When Picard goes, just fire, free for all. And then you literally see it on a 360-degree arc, like firing constantly round. When that's with phaser strips, not the Defiance, what they called, photon phase. I don't know what they're called.
Cannons.
The cannons, something like that. Yeah. So, and then it had the photons, the quantums. It was actually pretty maneuverable for a ship of its size, I believe, Gray. So this.
Definitely was.
It is literally a gorgeous ship, and it has this bloody joystick at the. You can fly with a joystick, man. Riker done it.
Quick, get your controllers out.
Get your controller out. Have you played much Atari? Yes. Okay, I'll be fine then. Yeah.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, back in my Atari days. And obviously, it held its own very well against Shinzon's ship. Shinzon's ship was designed for what it was. This Sovereign class is not, but still very powerful. It held its own so well against Shinzon's ship. And if Shinzon's ship hadn't cloaked, it may have been a 50-50 fair fight. But we don't do cloaking. Well, not at this time. Later on we do. So, yes.
Well, wait a minute. Defiant cloaked.
Yeah, that was a one-off rare exception. That was alone only in the beta quadrant for inside knowledge, intel from Beta Quadrant to go back to the Romulans, and the Romulan officer was always on board the Defiant. Oh, for a while, and then she buggered off. Like, she must have trusted him. Well, after a while, you didn't see her anymore because it was always that one officer or a officer that was there to man it. That's random, Gray. It reminds me of the one of Thor's species, the Thor in Stargate. I can't remember the name of his species, but there would always be one of those grey-looking dudes on one of the Earth ships in Stargate that manned the Asgard, manned the Asgard hyperdrive. They always had one of their guys there. It was like, we don't quite trust you. You're human beings. You may wreck everything, so we'll just have someone, just in case. But anyway, sorry, going off in different tangents. So yeah, beautiful ship. We love it. I could talk more about it, but we do want to finish this before Christmas and New Year. That'd be nice. So, number 2 on the list. Now, this is going to be interesting.
Before you go to number 2, I'm going to kind of call out Gamerant here, because when I saw number 2...
Oh, I need to say what number 2 is before you rant about it. No?
Okay.
Yeah. Let me read out the blurb and then you can rant. Is it this one you want to rant about?
No. Don't even read the blurb yet. Right, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Number 2 says Curiosity class. That's
For
wrong.
crying out loud.
Okay, first of all, it was an Odyssey class ship. I don't know where they got the Curiosity class from. So this is a faux pas right there. So it is not it's an Odyssey class ship. It is not Curiosity class. I'm going like, what the hell's a Curiosity?
Great, I thought the same thing as I was reading ahead. I thought, I recall it being Odyssey from the game and from Star Trek Picard Season 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been Odyssey. So I'm going like, what? So, I mean, I think that the blurb probably that they wrote about it holds true, but it's just not a Curiosity class. So you can go ahead now if you want to read it, but it's just, I'm looking at it and going like, huh? What? Wait a minute.
Hang on, I'm just curious.
I looked it up already.
I saw you typing away. I'm just 100% checking because, they've 100% made a mistake there. So, no, glad we cleared that up. I don't know a lot about this ship, but I'll read the little blurb out and we'll see what's what. So, it is the Odyssey class in number 2. This ship has only recently made its entrance in the Star Trek universe. It was introduced in Star Trek Picard Season 3 as a new wave of Federation starship, released initially in 2389. Ships such as the USS Odyssey and the USS Majid?
Majid, yeah, something like that.
So I'm thinking it's an Eastern name there. I'm not really sure about that. Are included in this class, which was primarily meant to replace the Asian Galaxy class vessels. I mean, to be fair, surely that came after the Sovereign, so that doesn't make sense. A mix between a heavy cruiser and an explorer ship, the Curiosity class will be able to do everything that the previous Enterprise ships were able to do. Ready for diplomatic missions, discovery missions, and if all else fails, combat missions as well. The Odyssey class is the next generation of Starfleet technology, which pushes beyond anything seen in the Star Trek outside the new season of Discovery, which is fair enough. Discovery so far in the future, they've got ships that look like bloody...
Yeah, you can't even...
They look like gardens, like literally they're bonkers. So, I'll quickly go first in this one, Greg, because I've got some fresh thoughts in my head. So, the main poster child of this one, and you don't know it until Picard Season 3, is the Enterprise F, which looks on paper like the next logical iteration of flagship of Enterprise, because it looks it looks most similar to the Enterprise E. And I get what it says in the blurb. It is the next evolution. It looks more like the E, but it is packed more to the gills with technology and defense. So it was like trying to blend the D and the E together, and that's what you've got, because it looks more like the E, but it's bigger than the E, I believe. We don't see this much at all. It was made in Star Trek Online, the game, and Star Trek, the show, the TV show, has now been dipping into the game more often for designs, which is great. I'm glad they're working together. It makes sense. And they took this idea, they tweaked it slightly, and they teased it Picard so much. Like, you'll see at least 2 Enterprises. I was like, wow. And then you see this. We never saw this anywhere near enough grey. It was like, excuse my French people, it was like a cock tease for Starships. You saw it briefly, and then it got... Did it get blown up? I don't recall. I don't think it did. No, it's the one that got... It was Admiral Shelby was leading out for the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Federation, blah blah blah, and it was some, I can't remember the battle, but it was a battle where it was damaged beyond repair. I think it was more not physical but internal damage in terms of systems and whatnot. It was never quite the same, so they got rid of it. But we don't see much. It's a crying shame. It's like the Enterprise B and C. The Enterprise B and C, especially, both of them were dull starship. I never liked them, so I'm glad. But this looks brilliant, and we get to see nothing of it, Grace. So by all means, take it away, mate. What do you know about it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it?
I mean, I like the ship itself. I think it's a really neat looking class ship. Unfortunately, we didn't really get to see it do much. Now, if you were a player of Star Trek Online, the ship was in there far more than it was in the TV. So I guess you could enjoy it, in the game. But as far as seeing on TV or movies, we didn't see a lot of it. But it looks like a pretty impressive ship to me. And I really did. And I think the styling was still closer to the E, although I prefer the E still. But it's still much closer to the E than anything.
Yeah.
And so it was a good ship. I mean, I would assume, just what little bit we do know, that it was a good ship. I mean, again, we only knew so much, and we actually at least got to see it fly because everybody wanted to see us the 1701F, and they stuck it in Picard for a short time.
Yeah.
And of course, it ended up meeting a fate or whatever, or Shelby meeting her fate. That's for sure.
Yes.
In Picard, we're not really doing any spoilers because Picard season 3 has been out for a while now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But in any case, I like the ship a lot. I don't know if I would rank it number 2 like they did, and maybe that's only because we didn't get to see it much. But if you're gonna go by canon, I guess it'd still be a little rough for me. I think I would have put the Odyssey class in 3 and kept the Sovereign at 2 or something like that. Because I just don't. Not that I'm not saying the Odyssey isn't powerful. I just think the Sovereign class would have to be a little above that in my list anyway.
Do you think part of that, Gray, is because you saw more of the Sovereign class where you didn't see much of the F, so that didn't help at all?
Right. I think that's part of it for sure. But I also think that even in the description where they say, well, it was part, discovery, it could be part, other things, and also it could be combat too. But the Sovereign class was obviously made more for combat. It's not that you couldn't do discovery missions on it. Yes, of course, but it was obviously made for war, more for war. So if you're going to look at it that way, and you are going by the fact that this is a list of powerful ships, then I don't see how you would put the Odyssey at number 2. You got to drop it down, and put the Sovereign class up there a little more. I mean, my opinion.
I'll have to agree with that. I don't pretend to know a lot about this ship for the reasons we just said before, which is a shame because this thing was supposed to be really powerful. I can't even really see much information online about what kind of technology and weapons it had, but you can make the fair assumptions that it's just an upgrade on what was there before. I think it did have shields that could literally recharge themselves from what I can see at the moment. A lot of rechargeable and a lot of secondary systems as well to beef it up. Obviously, the usual things like a plate of armour, but a standard photon and quantum standard, multiple phaser arrays as well. Fast as hell, because the latest ship like that usually is the fastest. But yeah, we generally don't see it much at all. It does looking at it, it does look pretty gorgeous. It's not as gorgeous as the E because they're trying to put a bit of Enterprise D into it, so it's going to take away some of her looks. But she's nimble, she's fast, she's good, and shame we never got to see more of her. But it is what it is. So
maybe one day, who knows?
Maybe one day, exactly. We never saw much of the B and C. The B they went back to in the movies.
Met in an early fate.
The C came back in TNG. But it made sense that they had to bypass it because it was the next generation, so they had to evolve past the TOS era to get to new classes of Starship. But that's why they done it, and obviously they can go back in the stories. The Enterprise C, I don't like the Enterprise C. It's a bit of an ugly ship, but the stories in TNG that was in were brilliant, absolutely brilliant, brilliant. Loved them. Tasha Yar going back in time, blah blah blah. Great, brilliant, love it. So yeah, we'll go number one. I am not agreeing with number 1 at all. I'm pissed off about it, and we'll explain why. But let me tell you what it is and read the blurb. It's the USS Vengeance. That might not be immediately familiar to your ears. It's a Dreadnought class ship purposely built for war, right? And it's from the Kelvin universe. This is why I don't agree with it mostly. So the blurb is the USS Vengeance, seen in Star Trek Into Darkness, is a very special case. You could say that, definitely. Despite the technology being old in comparison to many ships in the Next Generation and other shows, this was one of the few Federation ships ever made purely for war. With the unholy pact that Khan made helping to design the ship and its heightened intellect, Starfleet was able to secretly create one of the largest and most destructive forces in Starfleet history. Whether this is actually more powerful than starships created over 100 years later is hard to say for certain. We'll come back to that because it's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But Starfleet has yet to put any ships together that is so brutally focused on combat. And that's true to this day, even in the main universe. The capability of this ship to be armed and operated by a single man is also a terrifying notion. It enables one person to go rogue and operate one of the most deadly forces in the universe alone. If not for the quick thinking, it enabled the crew of the rebooted Enterprise to destroy it from within, with a huge payload of torpedoes teleported to the inside. This ship might never have been beaten. Gray, I'll let you have the first rant on this one.
Okay, the first rant is Kelvin Universe, and that almost is, you don't have to say anything else. Kelvin Universe, we don't like it. Gone, goodbye, blow it all up, we hate it. And we hate the looks of the ships. I'm sorry, the Enterprise and the Kelvin Universe. Talk about Fat Boy. I mean, I like the D. I mean, the D is a good ship. Is it a little wide? Yeah, it's a little wide, and we lovingly call it Fat Boy. But the Enterprise and the Kelvin truly was Fat Boy, with this overgrown, fat-looking nacelles and the strut that connected the nacelles instead of being a nice straight line kind of thing. It was like this curved thing, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
this thing was ugly. And then they come out with the Vengeance, which made no sense, and the whole thing with Khan, which made also no sense. And I don't think you're going to create a ship that powerful that technically 100 years before, if you were to kind of try to compare them, before the Class D came out in their Prime universe, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's too much to believe. And to be honest with you, this ship should never have been put on the list. It should have been a side honorable mention.
Yeah.
Saying like, oh, by the way, this was a ship, but not from the Prime universe, and they would mention it. Okay, mention it, but it's not. It shouldn't be in the main list. It should just be an honorable mention at the most.
That's fair.
And stuff. So to put it in here at all is totally ridiculous. So that would drop this list down to the top 5, not the top 6, or you would have to find something else more worthy to put into the spot to make it, 6 again. But to me, this whole list is ridiculous. I would just knock out the Vengeance and call it a top 5 list. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we've done a top 5 before,
crazy.
so it makes sense to me.
And also being operated by one man, give me a break. I mean, I understand the concept, and they were going like, well, wow, operated by one man. This is like, and I get the idea. But to me, it's a little too far fetched for one guy to do this. I mean, come on, it's just. I don't know. It just didn't make good. What would you call it? It didn't make good TV motion picture sense. To me, when you're making a movie, it's just one guy. What?
What's the chap that J.J. Abrams? Blame him, because this ship and those ships in the Kelvin universe were ugly because they tried to keep kind of a good chunk of the original design. Of course they did, but they beefed it up, flared it out. It had, I mean, literally, it was. J.J. Abrams said this himself. I wanted to make an Enterprise, like a hot rod Enterprise. So then the cells were big and chunky and they had fins on them. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And you see this, right? So basically, right, when I put the link in, go to it. If you probably remember the ship, but it's the one that Peter Weller, right? I mean, how funny would it have been if he was at the front as the Admiral, but in RoboCop outfit and not...
RoboCop.
RoboCop flying the USS Vengeance. I would have lost my shit. Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
And the rest of the crew are all RoboCops too.
But yeah, this ship, when you see it, you go and have a look at it, right? What it looks like the Enterprise, original Enterprise from the Kelvin universe, but beefed up massively. It's got the same kind of silhouette, same outline, with the two nacelles at the angle, the main saucer and the secondary hull and whatnot. It's all black because, I mean, no shit, Sherlock. That was one of the few smartest things they done. Make it black because space is black. I mean, you look out your window, you don't have sensors. I can see a ship. You can't see this. It's black. It blends in. So that was smart.
Yeah, it doesn't even. Right. I mean, I understand the black part of it, but to be honest, it really takes away from the ship.
Coco.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Black. It's space.
We hear baby blah. Coco. He's got a puppy called Coco.
Yeah. Somebody is that.
She's not happy. If you need a moment, great. It's fine.
Do me a favor. Pause. One sec.
Apologies, guys. Gray has some issues there. The dog's going nuts. People are coming in to do his roof, and the dog They didn't go past Coco first for approval. So if Coco doesn't approve them, they don't get in. But it's all good.
Well,
She's doing her.
what I did was I opened the door and let Coco rip their legs off. But
Yeah.
everything's fine now.
She's a good guard dog.
No.
She's really small, but then the size is nothing. So yeah, no apologies. Small little pause there for a moment. But yeah, we're almost done anyway. We're just talking about USS Vengeance, how crap it is. However, I like to try and be impartial wherever possible, Gray. So looking at it, of course, we said it. Paint it black, it blends in more. Of course, I wish they would do that with more ships. It's got where the deflector is. This makes sense. Smart. When it goes into battle mode, or basically when it's not a warp, it literally closes and that up so that it's not a point of vulnerability, which is smart. It makes sense. The thing didn't have a plate of armor back then because it wasn't a thing, but it was just thick hull bulk literally that made up this thing, and it was huge. It was literally 2-3 times the size of the TOS Kelvin universe ship. It was massive. The Enterprise was getting absolutely pummeled, if you remember that movie. It wasn't standing a chance. It had it was like a cross between normal phasers, Grey, and the pulsed phasers from the Defiant. So they were like, it was like more like I think like more like TOS actually. And still, it had phasers coming out of one spot, but they were like little miniature. I don't know the terminology. They weren't. It wasn't a thin strip. It had that as well. It wasn't a single beam. It was multiple attacks, and they were ripping the Enterprise a new one. Of course, if it wasn't for the Enterprise crew thinking smart, let's go inside and blow it up from within inside. That makes sense. The thing, Grey, of being flown by one person is a bit silly. However, with the right technology and redundancies and automation, yeah, that can be done. But
oh yeah, I mean they had if you
totally
remember on TOS they had Nomad, and Nomad basically was operating the ship by itself. I'm not saying it can't be done, but now I'm going off of maybe what could be reality and talking about TV and motion picture enjoyment. There's things you got to do to enjoy something. In other words, if you were to make a movie, Star Trek, and you painted every ship in the entire Starfleet black, and you painted all the enemy ships black and everything else black, the whole movie would be boring as hell because you couldn't see anything.
I think that's a ship.
All you would see is little phaser fire, and you're going like, who's hitting what? Can you imagine you go Wrath of Khan, like the best Star Trek movie? You see the ships are black, and all you see is like phasers coming out.
Of course.
You can't even tell what's going on.
I'm glad that's a one-off, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm glad it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Visually, I don't think it looks too bad. If you put aside the bias of the Kelvin universe, right, which I understand, I have it as well, and you think of one man going nuts, making a secret, and he's an admiral, making a secret ship being the most powerful thing that could exist, I would imagine something like that. And that's TOS era. That's really impressive. To put that up against a ship now, see, this is it's just me guessing here. I've no evidence at all for this. If this was up against a normal standard TNG ship, right? It might win. But if it was up against like a flagship, like a Sovereign or something, then maybe not. Technology would beat it then, But the thing is, beefy, bulky, and it's fast as hell. It caught up with Enterprise and overtook it at warp. Really, really bloody fast, this thing. And just humongous. But no, I wasn't a massive fan of this ship. It should never have existed, but it did. They shouldn't have put it in the list, I don't think. But yeah, Dreadnought class makes sense. It literally is. I don't know if it's officially its class, but we'll call it that because that's what they call it. So
Sure.
The list is interesting, Greg. I agree with some of it. I don't agree with others. The Vengeance should never be anywhere in the list. And they made a boo-boo with the Curiosity class. It's actually the Odyssey class. Maybe the order should have been up and down with a couple of other ships, but
I mean, I think if I was going to redo this list,
four ships should be in that. Four ships should be in that, Grey. Akira, Defiant, Galaxy, and Sovereign should be in that list, but Curiosity shouldn't have made it in there because we don't know enough about it. That's just stupid. And Vengeance is based on a universe that Grey wants to go and set a match to. So
right, exactly. I think I would probably, because we don't know enough about it, etc., and from the description, I would have put the Odyssey class probably down like at number 5. Forget 6.
Or even in the list. Maybe not even in it.
No, I would throw it in there only because it is supposed to be what it's supposed to be. So okay, fine.
Supposed to
So you
be.
put it at 5,
We
and then
saw
I would probably
nothing.
put again going from purely from a one ship, what we saw before, a single ship power. I would probably put the Defiant either 1 or 2, put the Sovereign either 1 or 2, and then the Galaxy class, and then the Akira, and then the Odyssey, something like
If
that.
if you're accepting the Kelvin universe, which none of us are, if you're accepting the Kelvin universe, then the USS Vengeance is number one. I hate to say it, man. The thing is literally like it's like the Enterprise going to the gym and doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah, but
on
that
steroids and whatnot.
I don't even think that's a valid argument because if it's just because if it's in more in the TOS era, even though it was Kelvin, if you put it up against a Defiant class or you put it up against an E, it's gonna tear it up because it's not made for that. It didn't
Well,
have the
technology, yeah, technology. That's what I said. That was my point earlier on. Technology is an element.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
still has very powerful phasers, many of them,
yeah.
and powerful photon torpedoes, and a lot of shielding and mass itself. So I don't know. This is for a fan edit to do to go in and actually make this. The fans
Well,
do like this all the time.
let me throw something at you. If we
Right.
were gonna go with a ship that technically isn't in canon per se, okay, there was the episode. I believe it was the last episode of TNG where the appearance of Riker and a Galaxy class
Oh, with the
ship
third nacelle.
with third nacelle, and also they had a phaser lance. You remember that?
Yes,
So that actually could have been a more of a dreadnought class ship. A lot of people were calling it a dreadnought,
I
not
hate that
necessarily
ship with a
Galaxy class.
passion.
I know, I understand, but from the standpoint of a
Yeah, right.
warship,
You're right.
that's
Your
what it
point is
was.
valid. Yeah.
Okay, then I would have put that ship in this list and taken out the Vengeance, and put that one in there because at that time, more in the 24th century, it was the most powerful ship we had seen.
Technically, the Kelvin universe is canon, Gray. I don't agree with that. I know what you're saying. I don't like it either, mate. But I don't make up the rules.
It's canon of a different universe, and we don't accept
Yes,
that.
it's the
universe,
multiverse.
so,
It's the multiverse.
I
But
think the whole multiverse has been so overdone. It's
Gray made a cracking. You make a cracking point, my friend. The 3 nacelles is ugly as hell. At least put 4 on it. The Stargazer. It's the symmetrical thing. The 3 nacelles make it look. I just think of Doctor Strange with the third eye right at the end of the Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
Just weird. And the big phaser lance underneath just looks like the Enterprise D with a penis. It's just what? What? It's hanging there underneath. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, if you're gonna have a phaser lance, I would rather you see I would rather you fire a actual lance, maybe. You know what I mean? Like fire some
or a railgun
like
or something.
yeah, something like that, or a long torpedo. It would look like a long torpedo or a harpoon, right? Now that would be cool. You fire off imagine this big ass harpoon thing coming at you, like whoa. Like,
True.
that would have been cool.
It's a good point, Great. It's a good point. Listen, we're going to wrap up there. I'm surprised we're getting over an hour out of this, but you know us, Gray and I can talk nonsense for a long time, so it is what it is.
Good sense. It's good nonsense, then.
Of course, it's good nonsense. You and I think so. We'll probably come back in a couple of weeks again for another special. We'll see what's on the idea sheet. If you have an idea though for a special Star Trek you want us to discuss, anything, we'll look at it and we'll consider it. Let's not forget the housekeeping there. I probably should have done it at the start. We are doing specials every 2 or 3 weeks until. Probably it'll be season 5 of Discovery. I can't see season 2 of Prodigy coming out before then, but probably April we'll keep doing specials, so get your ideas in there. Gray does, of course, GGR. Life's got in the way. We haven't been able to do it for 6 weeks, 2 months, but we will be doing that after the holiday break. And you can catch him at Gray's Green Room on YouTube, on the Twitters, and also wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, we are available to listen to if you don't want to see these ugly mugs, but why wouldn't you? And then last but not least, don't forget we do still do the gaming pod with our friend Nick. Well, the link is below for the Discord, and the reason I plug that is because as well as doing a gaming pod every week, we have rooms for everything. I've got Star Trek 1 in there for Trekway. Gray's got an entertainment room in there for GGR, plus all the gaming chat. It's one stop to talk about everything. Come in and talk about the Trekway there, or to Gray and I about the entertainment stuff. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for now. Thank you to everyone that's listening and watching. And thank you to my colleague and friend Gray. And we'll just say goodbye then. Until then, Gray, do your thing.
Live long and prosper, everybody.
Bye. Bye-bye.